Hi, I'm Andrew and welcome to Plant Life Project. Well, today I want to talk about 8 common mistakes that are so easy to make when you're trying to grow houseplants or riparian plants in your fish tank. These are mistakes that I've made personally, and my goal is to share some things with you that I've learned along the way, hopefully help you avoid potential problems, help you find some solutions, also help you find encouragement if you were feeling discouraged or frustrated. And after this video, please check out the links down in the description for more helpful content. The first mistake is not selecting the right plants. Now, there is a wide variety of houseplants that can grow in your tank, but some are more difficult to grow than others and may require more experience. When you're first starting out, you want to stick to the plants that are tried and true for most people. Some beginner plants that I would recommend are pothos, peace lily, umbrella sedge, lucky bamboo, parlor palm, and the different varieties of MONSTERA. And not just the large MONSTERA deliciosa, but smaller ones also, like MONSTERA adansonii and Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. Number 2 is not preparing your plants properly. If you're starting with a plant that's growing in potting soil, you will need to wash all of that potting soil off of the roots. Make sure the roots are healthy and free of any debris or fertilizer before adding it to your tank. And keep in mind that the plants will go through a period of several weeks potentially of adapting to grow in water. And during this time, they may not grow very much. You may have some leaves that wilt, you may have some root die back, but this is normal and temporary. As long as your plant isn't starting to rot, just be patient and give it some time. The third mistake is selecting the wrong size plant for your tank. You definitely need to know how big some of these plants can grow before putting them in your tank. You would not want to grow a MONSTERA deliciosa, for example, in a nano tank. But even among peace lilies, there are some that stay pretty small, 10 to 12 inches tall, but some can get as large as 3 to 4 feet tall or even more. So be sure to research and know the plants that you are selecting for your tank. Number 4 is not growing enough plants to filter your water effectively. If your goal for growing riparian plants is to reduce your water changes, keep in mind that the number and size of your plants needs to be proportionate to the bioload of your tank. So the more waste that's being produced, more plant volume you'll need to feed on that waste. So for example, if you have a 55-gallon fully stocked tank and one small pothos plant, you're probably not going to achieve a reduction in water changes. You're going to need more plant volume feeding on that waste. And this is a balance that you'll have to find over time. Number 5 is not enough light for your plants. Most of the house plants that we grow in our tanks are considered low light plants, and they can live with not much more than ambient lighting. However, they will grow much better and filter your water more effectively if you give them more light. Now, bright direct sun is probably going to be too much light for most of these plants, but if you can give them indirect sunlight or provide supplemental lighting with the appropriate fixture and bulb, this can give them just what they need in order to thrive. Number 6 is not testing your water on a regular basis. It can be easy to assume that because you have riparian plants growing in your tank, then that automatically means you don't have to do water changes. And while these plants have the potential to reduce water changes by feeding on all those excess nutrients, you need to test and be sure that they are. Performing regular water testing once a week or so with just a simple dip strip test kit, or more advanced kit if you want, can help monitor the nitrogen levels primarily to make sure that the riparian plants are keeping up with the supply of the fish waste. Number 7 is not letting your plant roots grow down into the tank substrate. The first time that I grew peace lily in a fish tank, I would get concerned when the roots would get long and grow close to the bottom of the tank. And I was concerned that the roots would just take over the tank unless I kept them trimmed back. So after 2 or 3 different times of trimming the roots back, the plant slowly began to decline. The large leaves would die back and the new leaves were not getting as large. I tried dosing fertilizer, but to no avail. They were slowly starving and they were unable to gain enough energy to fully replenish themselves, and they eventually died. And of course they died. I was preventing them from growing and keeping the roots from doing what they are best at, which is seeking out the greatest nutrient source available to them, which in this case is the tank substrate. From that point on, I stopped trimming roots, but allowed them to grow on all my riparian plants down into the substrate if they wanted to. And I noticed that when this happened, the plants would increase their growth rate, leaves would get bigger, the vines would grow faster and thicker, and the root mass did not crowd the tank like I had initially feared. This was a very powerful lesson for me to let those roots grow. Number 8, the biggest mistake that I think we can make is giving up too soon. Every tank is different, and what works great in one tank may not work as well in another. And it can be hard to figure out why, because there's so many determining factors at work. One person may be able to grow pothos, peace lily, anthurium, monstera, whatever, wonderfully, and then another person may struggle to grow it. And it can be easy to give up in frustration. But I want to encourage you, don't give up. Instead, start experimenting with different plants until you find the ones that work for you. Experimenting is what I do constantly with riparian plants, but also with submerged aquarium plants. So many of the beginner aquarium plants just haven't done very well for me, but through experimenting, I eventually find some that are fantastic, but I had to do the experimenting to get to that point. So I invite you to join me in this lifestyle of trial and error. Let's experiment, man, and figure out what works. Well, be sure to check out the links below for more helpful content. Please hit that like button, leave me a comment. Thank you for watching, and remember, it's all about the plants.